I also do work with teachers and other departments when it comes to training with technology. This is my 23rd year in the district and probably my 7th year with library services. So that is my email. So if you have any questions at all, you can also contact me via email if you have questions about anything that I talked about today. So let's get into today's plan. It looks like a lot that we're going to go over. So like I said, I'm going to go through things fairly quickly because of time. But like I said, you'll be able to get back to this presentation and review anything that you're like, wait a minute, what did she say? Because believe me, you're not going to remember all of this. Just hearing it one time, it's like anything when you're learning, repetition, trying it out is very important. So if you do have a device and you're able to open up a tab and able to navigate between the two, I encourage you to try this out while I am presenting. However, if that's a little bit too much, that's okay. You can come back to the presentation, you can come back to the video, and then you can try it up that way. But it's going to be very important at some point that you get onto these apps and you try out some of the things that I've been demonstrating for you, because that's the best way to learn, is learn by doing. And you learn to ride a bike by actually getting on the bike, right? Not just watching. You can't keep watching. You can't watch me do technology, but you actually have to try it. So that's going to be a very important part that you, hey, let me take some time and try some of those things that she talked about yesterday. And then it's okay if you don't remember or get it right, but you're trying, and that helps you get better and have more confidence. So just a reminder, what we're looking at are Google Apps. So in last session, we focused on Google Drive, which is kind of like the central hub. If you think of a file cabinet, you think of Google Drive. This is where all the files are kind of like centered and located, where I can organize and, you know, find things, color code things, put things in folders. What we're going to be looking at today is another one of the G Suite apps. And so all of these G Suite apps make up, you know, Google for Education. And so the app we're going to be looking at today is going to be Google Docs. So you can see here, there's all of these apps. So we could literally have, like, there's Google Sheets, there's Google Slides, all of those different things serve different purposes. But again, are part of you having your Google account with Columbus City Schools. It is also important to note that if you have a personal Gmail account, you have access to these same things. So if you're looking to use Google, let's say for something you're planning a family reunion and you want to be able to share documents. So you can use Google, your personal Google account, in the same ways that you use your school account. But you want to be sure that you're working in the right accounts, that when you're working in your school account, that it is school related work, and that if you're searching or anything that you're leaving that school account. Like I said, I would not put your school account on your phone because it's too hard to kind of manage and keep track of what account you're in. I would leave the personal Gmail account on your phone and maybe any other devices that you have, and then using your school Google account. But Google Docs is what we're going to be looking at today. And so Google Docs is what a lot of people might compare Word to, right? Microsoft Word. It's not exactly the same, but there are very similar features that where if you do understand how to use Microsoft Word, there is an easy transfer into using Google Docs. It's not exactly the same. And when you're introduced to new apps like this, it's not necessarily either that, oh, I don't use Microsoft Word anymore. I still use Word. It depends on what I'm doing. So Google Docs is good for certain things. I'm trying to collaborate. I want things in the cloud. I might use Word if, I'm using other programs now, but Word, I might have used more for like different flyers, because I just feel like you can do a little bit more with Word than you can with Docs. It just depends on what I'm trying to do. So you don't ever have to abandon everything that you know with technology and say, oh, well, everybody uses Docs more, but I really like Word. Well, that's fine. You can still use Word. It's just Google Docs does have some things in it that makes it a lot easier to do as far as the capabilities to share and have things in the cloud. So when you are creating a new Google Doc, there's a couple ways to do that. You can first, of course, like I said, when you go to the waffle, that takes you to all of the apps. And so it's very important too, when you're in that waffle, that you are looking to see what account you are in. Remember, if you check your Gmail on when you're at work, when you're on your computer, you are signing into your personal Google account just by checking your email. So you might say, well, I didn't sign into my Google account. You did when you signed into your email. So if you do check your personal email, like I said, I always recommend you doing that in a different web browser so that you can distinguish between when you're in your school account and you're in your personal account. So you can get to a new doc 3 ways. You can go through the apps launcher, what we sometimes call the waffle. You can go to this website or just put in docs.new in a new Chrome tab. Or when you're in your Google Drive, you also can create a new Google Doc. So the Google Docs kind of like lie in many different places. It's kind of like it's in the cloud, but you can access these through various ways. So for example, I'm going to open up another tab. And from here, you can see my account. Now up here is where I can see all my other accounts. So I have 2 other Google accounts that I have in a separate profile. But anyways, you can either access here by going directly to the app, and this will pull up just any of the Google Docs. And this is a little different from Drive because you can't organize this. So I can't put these things into folders. I can just search for certain things. The great thing about the search bar is that if you type in any title, it will find any of the documents that have that word in there. So I sometimes go directly to this Google Docs when I'm looking for things, but a lot of times I go to the Drive. But from here, you can create a new Google Doc. And then if you open up another tab, then if you go to your waffle, you can click on the Drive. And I'm just going to show you the other way. So this is my Drive with 1,000 folders. But from here, I can go to the new button. And I also can start a new Google Doc. So there's several ways. But that same document, is going to lie in the same place. Even though I went to different places to get it, I can go to the Drive to pull it up. I can go directly to Docs to pull it up. And then you can also just type in docs.new to put in a new one. All right. So that's how you can start a Google Drive. So from here, you're looking at navigating the Google Docs. All right. So now we are going to look at, well, what is a Google Doc? And so that's when I explained that it's going to be very similar to Microsoft Word, where you're going to have kind of that same menu. You're going to have your document title. Everything is defaulted to untitled document. And the cool thing about Google Docs is that everything saves automatically. So regardless if you save it, if it crashes, there's not even an option to save. It saves your document. And if you don't name it, it saves it as untitled document. Then you have your tool menu where you can add images, font size, alignment tools, comments, and document sharing. I'm going to go ahead and go live with the document. So again, here's your toolbar. Go ahead and click. If you click on any of these, you can see what are some of the options. So you have your file. This is where you can do things like download it, email, share. So there's multiple same menus. So anything that is a Google Doc can also take on another format. So sometimes, a lot of times, my Google Docs, I do PDF them if I'm going to be emailing them to someone. And that's where you're able to download. Also, you can see that Google Docs is also interchangeable with Microsoft Word. So then you can see here on this menu, just some of your options. You also have the option with the language to change the language of any document. However, I would caution using this because we know when we use something like Google Translate, it doesn't always translate in like how people speak. So, if you're working with a school and you're like, oh, I want to put this whole entire document in this language, I would just probably double check with that because it doesn't always translate like how people would write or talk. And then you also have page setup and print. Then you have the option here with edit. We'll get to that in just a second. Then we have view. And like I said, we have the insert. And so here are a lot of different things. We're not going to get to all of these things under insert, mainly because, like I said, we could spend 2 hours on this, but I'm just going to show you a few things. But these are different things that can be inserted within a Google Doc. You also have the same thing with your formatting, where you can change different things in the formatting, whether it's the style, adding bullets, page numbers, all of those different things. Tools are some other things that they provide as far as spelling, word count, and we're going to get to some of this stuff. I'm not going to go over all of this, like I said, because of time. And then this right here, we're not even going to touch, is the extensions part, which is like add-ons, which allows you to do other kind of cool things with Google Docs. So for example, you can see I use a label extension to make labels, but as I mentioned, that's a little bit more advanced to get into how to use some of the extensions. So with that being said, let's go to the next one. So what we're going to focus on under the insert is going to be adding tables and images. Okay. So one thing that you can do with it, so I'm going to name this animals. And like I said, you can, you know, you can name it, but it always will save it even if you don't name it. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to type here animals, and then I'm going to insert a table. So if you go to insert table, and then it asks you, do you want it to be like 1 by 1? I'm just going to do a 1, a 3 by 2, and then it inserts the table. All right. So then I'm going to name these tables after animals because we're going to practice putting actual pictures in there. So we got the sloth, penguin, and cheetah. All right, so what we are looking at is just, okay, so we were looking at how to add a table. And so that is what, again, you would just type it in, you could go to insert, and then you would insert a table, okay? So if you want to try, I'm just going to do this for a quick minute. Go ahead and create a new Google Doc, rename it animals, and insert a table 3 by 12 and add 3 animals you like. So hopefully you were able to do that. Again, that's just, we're focusing on just a small part of the insert, just if you wanted to insert a table. So that's good to use if you were trying to create a document and organize maybe different people, different numbers, or something where you needed a chart. So you are able to complete that in Google Docs. Maybe you don't need something as fancy as a Google Sheet because this is just a basic table that you need to put in there. But if you needed to do a little bit more with the table, then that's when you would go to Google Sheets, which is Google's version of like Excel. And it does a lot of the same things as that. All right. So now what we're going to be looking at is looking at the ability to change your different fonts. So here you can see it works very similar to how you might work in Word, where you would highlight anything that you might want to change. But you also could turn on the fonts here. So you can see up here on your toolbar, this toolbar is kind of like the quick toolbar that where you can click on these different things, you can change the font. So you're able to select a font, but you always want to select a font based on your audience as well. So, you know, a lot of times when I work with students, they all like the fun fonts and the ones that you really can't see. They love the cursive ones, even though a lot of them haven't learned cursive. But when there are certain fonts, they're hard to read on computer screens. So when you are typing something, you always want to consider your audience based on the font that you're going to choose. Just because like some font looks more professional, let's say you're making a something for students or a flyer, or You might want to choose the Comic Sans. But if you're working on, let's say, a paper for class, you might, of course, want to use the traditional Times New Roman. So, you don't want to get too crazy when it comes to the font. You just always want to consider your audience. They also have the option here to add more fonts. So you can also look and search for different fonts and add different ones. So there are tons on there to choose from. But like I said, always consider your audience when you are doing that. So you are able to highlight, and then you can change the fonts to make it whatever you want it to be. Also here in Google Docs, very similar to Word, where this toolbar allows you to change the size. You also are able to change the text color. You can underline, italicize, bold. You also can highlight. So anything that you can do in a traditional document, you can do in Google Docs when you are changing the font. Now, the next thing we're going to look at is how to insert an image. And there are several ways to do that. The first way to do that is what we call the Explorer tool. So when you go to insert up here, you have the word image. So you can upload any image from the computer, but one way that you can do is you can search the web. When you search the web in Google Docs, it pulls up a Google search box right there next to your doc. So you're able to have your doc and search at the same time. So you can search, let's say, a sloth. And then from here, you can click on the sloth and you can insert it. Can't see much. You can just drag it over and I can place it in the box. So one thing too, when you click on the picture, the one thing I don't like about Google Docs is it's not very picture friendly. So if you're trying to like get fancy with pictures and put things in and move them around, it's not the best program. That's why I'd like to use like Google Drawings, or I like to use Canva to do flyers. I stay away from doing like fancy flyers and things like that on Google Docs because I just think it's really hard to format. But to me, Google Docs is really good for some of the basics that you might be using. Information you want to share, but it doesn't have to be in a flyer, like, because it gets kind of tricky with the Google Docs. But this is where when you click on the picture, you can change whether you want it to wrap text. When it's in line, it gets kind of weird behind text. So that's how you're able to move it around based on when you clicked on the picture, how you want it to move. And so that's how you can insert a picture. Like I said, that is just under insert image, upload from computer. There's also a little shortcut right here that allows for you to insert an image. And another way that you can insert an image, I use a lot, is I could just do a basic Google search. If I go to images, from here, I can click and drag and drop. So you can, sometimes I notice when I search from here, I can't find images. So you can just click and drag from another tab. I always show students that trick because sometimes when you are searching in the Explorer tool, I don't think that when I search here, sometimes I don't think it has everything. I'm like, hey, this picture seems kind of limited. So I might open up another tab and search that way. And so that's how you're able to insert an image. You don't want the image, you can just hit delete. One of my favorite things to use in Google Docs is the undo. I'm telling you, don't ever feel like, oh my gosh, what did I just do to this document? Just go to undo. Just keep undoing it. Like, I don't know, I inserted this picture, it deleted everything, it did something weird. Where did everything go? You're just going to hit the undo button until you get back to where it was. And so that's the great thing about, it being here on the cloud is that, those versions are saved. And so with that being said, one other important thing that I really, really like is the revision history. So you can right here, this right here where it says last edit was seconds ago, you can open up the version history. So don't ever think like, I use this a lot because I'm like, wait, what did I do? How did I get here? You know, when this document is like not where I want it to be. Here, I can determine like, okay, at what time. So when I first got here, it was 4:40. And then I can look at all the different versions of my document and say, okay, oh, that's not where I want it to be. I want to be back to this one. And so that's when we get to sharing. You don't ever have to really get nervous about, hey, this person is going to mess up my document. They don't know what they're doing. It's okay, because guess what? If they do, you can restore it before. So the good thing about being able to collaborate and always being nervous, oh, well, are they going to delete stuff? I don't want to delete stuff. It's okay because it's always there. The good thing about this when working with students is that basically when I've worked with students and they've collaborated, it tells you who typed what at what time, right? So you can erase it all you want, but it still has a footprint that this person typed this at that time. Okay. You're even also able to tell as the owner of a document if someone even viewed the document. Okay. So I can tell if you even look, if someone is who's looked at it and opened it. So, you know, it is tracking. You can, even if you erase it, it's still tracking what you wrote. So that's what I would explain to students. Hey, you can type something mean about somebody else, but there's going to be a digital footprint even after you erase it that says what time you typed what. And so I'm going to restore this one. And like I said, that's a good thing for people that are new to using Google Docs. I think it does kind of help you with some comfort level when people are sharing things with you. You don't want to mess it up. You're kind of afraid to get in there and work and thinking like, well, I'm not sure, but just know that because of how Google Docs works, that most things, you know, are saved somehow and can be restored. So I just went over the fonts. Okay, so let me do the colors real quick. So just again, like I said, I'm just focusing on a small part of the Google Docs. There are a lot of other things that you could do. Okay. All right. So once I am here, if I highlight, if you want to change that font as well, I mean the color of that, if I go here to my paint, that changes the background color, where I can change that background color. So any of your charts that your tables that you are creating, you can have different color coding. Also, if you click here off the screen, well, also, I'm sorry, this part. If you want to change the page color, if you go to page setup, you also can change, if you don't want a white page, you can also change the page color here. So you can do a different page color based on that. So that was under, so not only can you change font, you can change the font color, you can color code your table, but you also can change the page color if you want. I'm going to undo that. So again, undo is going to probably be your best friend for someone new working and trying things out, because it does take some practice to kind of get the, you know, it can be a little tricky with some of this stuff in Google Docs. All right, so we added images. All right, so why don't you go ahead and give a quick try. Change the table background color, change the font, right click to explore and add images of your animals by dragging. And what that is when you are in Google Docs, if you right click, it also pulls up that menu where you can, where's explore? See it there. Okay. But again, it's just up here and insert image and search the web. Because it doesn't put it in there. So if you don't say, I want to go to the zoo, period, you would have to go back and add in all the punctuation as well. And so if I allow the microphone and I speak, it will type whatever I am saying. exclamation mark. Yep. So I gotta turn it off because it'll still be typing. All right. So that is, oh, look how it's spelled cuz. That's interesting. But so anyways, that is another tool that is very useful if you are busy on the go. Like I said, even for your own like personal use, and you're like, okay, I want to do my to-do list. I can speak it. This is just another thing that you can use with voice typing. It's a great accommodation for students to use. They do have to be, probably with a headset and a microphone if you are using it, because it picks up all of the voices. So if you are using it for personal or professional use, you do kind of have to be somewhere where it's quiet and it only is picking up your voice. But, it is helpful when, you got all these thoughts in your head and you're like, hey, I want to get them on paper, then I can go back and edit it. But it doesn't work for everyone. It's something that I rarely use because despite me being here presenting, I'm really not like a talker. So, I'd rather just type it than talk about it. But everybody's different. So you may find use in this tool. You might not, but it just letting you know that it is an option that's out there. Also, another tool, and again, just looking at these, we'll probably have to get into it later. But here, I've told you where I said the activity dashboard. This is where you can tell if anyone has viewed the document. So if the document is shared with someone, and then you can tell if they ever looked at it, okay, by going into the activity dashboard. So it even kind of gives in, like I said, there's no viewers here, but if you shared it with someone and they never looked at it, they will be able to check that in the activity dashboard. So, that's just important to know, like, hey, did they ever see that document? Like, you can check to see if they looked at it. Also, you have the translate document, like I told you, that's there as well. Also, the citations is pretty cool. It's changed over from how I used to use it, but it does have the option, especially for those who may be back in school. It does have this citation generator that it helps with, very similar to how you might use a works cited website. They have it built in within here too, if you are using, Google Docs, let's say for your personal, you're in school and you're in your typing essays, you do have the option to use that citation thing. So those are just some of the tools. Like I said, we could get into more of these, but for the sake of time, just want to kind of show you where those are and some of the more important ones. And so the final one I'm going to show you before we get into sharing is how to insert a checklist. So again, we inserted a picture, we inserted a table under format. The checklist is just very similar to the bullets and numbering. So it allows you to, like, if you are creating a checklist that can actually be like checked off. So I can put the check and then I can check it and it crosses it out. Or I can put a check that when I insert the check mark, it doesn't cross it out. So either one, all right? So you can have a checklist. So if you're collaborating with someone on a document and, hey, these are the things that we need to get done for, whatever your position may be, and you're shared this document and you want to be able to check off who's done what, you can insert that check mark box. And again, that was under format and that's under bullets and numbering. So you can put bullets, but you also can put a checklist. All right. So we're going to just real quickly, probably like 2 minutes, because we need to get to the last part of the sharing. Go ahead and try voice typing. You're on mute, so it's okay for you to go ahead and try it. Just make sure, well, I don't know if that'll work with, you have to allow your microphone. So maybe we'll wait for the voice typing, but go ahead and add a checklist to your document and we'll just give you 2 minutes if you're trying this out. Those things with Google Docs. And so now we're going to get to the last part, which is probably the best part of Google Docs, is the ability. There's two things that I love most about Google Docs. I use a lot of other different programs, but the two things I love about Google Docs is one, that it's in the cloud, that I can access it from any device. So when I first started in the district, I remember always having to carry a little jump drive. So anything that I wanted to work on at home, I had to save it and then take it home, work on the computer, and then take it back. And then if I forgot the jump drive, was, let's say, a handout that I created for students, I'm like, oh man, I left it at home. Or I'll try to sign into the portal. I don't know if anybody remembers trying to do that. But the one thing I love about Google Docs is that it's in the cloud and I can access my documents from any computer. The other thing I love about it is that now you can also share in real time with anyone that has a Google account. And this sharing gets back from, I don't know if anybody remembers when someone would email you an attachment of a Word document and then make the changes, and then they would email it back, and then you kind of say, wait, which one is the most recent document? So this right here allows for you to share in real time. And so it's probably one of the best things about Google Doc is when you are trying to collaborate with someone, it's the easiest way to do it. No emailing back and forth, in real time. You can work together, you can give comments, you can give feedback. And so you can share in multiple ways. You can share directly with someone's email. You can share via a link. And also it can be shared in Google Classroom for people who use Google Classroom. And so you're able to share that document with someone. So when you are sharing, you will go to share. And so then you can type in the email address. If you've never shared with that person before, their email address will not automatically populate. So you will have to include their whole email address. And you always want to make sure that you check your spelling, because there's also, like, if the 12 was left out or the 1, it won't share it. Okay, so you always want to make sure that. So once you decide to share with someone, it gives you the options. Well, okay, what kind of permissions is this person going to have? Do I just want them to look at it? Do I want them to give me comments, or can they be an editor? One thing too that they've added recently is the expiration date, that after a certain day, they will be no longer able to view the document. So from here, you can decide how you want that person to be able to view your document. Now, just note, if they are editor, they can make changes. But again, don't worry about people being able to make changes to your document. We want to be able to collaborate, but anything, don't ever feel afraid that you're going to mess something up or they're going to mess something up, because it can always be recovered. And so also when you're sharing with the link, I usually use the link if I'm sharing with a lot of people and I don't want to type in all the individual email addresses. So I will just, anyone with the link means that anybody that clicks this link can open it. And they can view it, or they can edit it, or they can comment. So you always got to check your permissions when you're sharing, okay? Now, one thing too, if it's restricted and you never change it and you copy link, they're not going to be able to open it. That's where you're going to get request access edit from, right? So a lot of times if you ever try to open it, like, why can't I open it? It's requesting edit access. It has to do with how the person sharing the link has set up the sharing permissions. So if they say Columbus City Schools, I rarely just share with Columbus City Schools, because you have to be signed into your Columbus City account. And so, like, say you're trying to look at something on your phone and you're not going to be able to look at it. So unless it's something that is very, like, okay, you need to be in your account to look at this, then I will set it that way. But most of the time, I don't have any like top private information that, most of the time I don't have that kind of stuff, where I always share it. Anyone with the link can view. So you could copy that link and, let's say, email it to everyone instead of putting everyone's email in there. And so you can give different access that way when sharing. And so then the person will get a notification. If you send the email, they'll get a notification to the email. But one thing is important to note, when something has shared with you, you do not have to access it through your email. So if I type in someone's email, they can go to their drive and it's going to be right there, even without them clicking on the email. Because sometimes you might think, well, where was that email at? That document was shared with me. I can't find that email. Well, if you go to that shared with me, like again, like I said, if they shared it directly with your email or you have clicked on your link. So say, for example, you just clicked on this link that I shared with you. You can go directly to your drive. So if say you lost the link, you don't know her, okay, what's that link that she gave us? It's going to be on your share with me automatically because you clicked it. So it's automatically going to be on your share with me. If someone shares something with you, you don't get the email. You don't need the email to access that document. It should be there as long as they shared it with your correct email address. And so again, when you're collaborating, when you have it under edit, remember, it's a really cool thing when everybody's working in a document. Now, I will admit, if there's too many people, it gets kind of crazy because it's like people start typing over people's names and deleting people. And you're like, hold on, what just happened? I just was typing. So I think collaborating, working at one time is, there should be, like, I would never put all 86 of us in one document. It would just be a train wreck. Okay. But when you're having smaller groups and you're working with another person, and people are kind of working at different times, it's a great thing to use. All right. So I will take any questions right now. Saying she inserted it in Word. That's where yeah. So yes. I have inserted, so that would be another presentation on Google Slides because it's more like a presentation where you might insert the audio. So Google Docs really isn't kind of like that format for that. It's kind of like, but as far as someone creating a bingo card, if they were going to do that, that's just you inserting a table and then inside the table. So if you were going to do a bingo card, and like I said, a lot of things out there, if you are searching for different templates, they share a lot. If you search, Google Slide bingo template, you can find these things already created. And then you're able to, anytime you find a document, you're able to make a copy and, you can make it your own. But definitely, I think she made a good point is you have to be willing to try it and fail and not know where to click, and the computer might turn off. Chrome might crash. That is okay. I'm telling you, the computer is going to be okay. So it will reboot. Yeah, I don't know what I just did, but the computer just cut all the way off, and that is okay. You just get back on there and say, okay, I'm not going to click that button anymore because clearly that was what I was going to do. So you want to just make sure that you're trying things out. You don't have to spend a lot of time. So you can send me an email. I really hate when I hear that somebody spent 3 hours looking for something. You can drop me an email. You can also, YouTube, I fixed the whole dishwasher using YouTube. So anytime you're trying like how to make a table in Google, YouTube that, because I know you don't have a lot of time. And so spending that time trying to figure things out when you can ask someone, or you can maybe, like, people put all these very helpful videos on YouTube all the time. So you can say, how do I create this in Google? And you can find that video.
Thank you, Ms. Ray. We have D. Brown asked, if I created a document in my work Google but didn't share it, would anyone be able to open it? That's in the chat.
No. So the only way someone can access your document is if you have shared it with someone. So, your stuff it's not public on the web. So anything that you're creating, your Google account is not public until you actually make it public by sharing it with someone. So it is, your private document until it is shared with someone.
So, Ms. Ray, I have a quick question in lieu of that. If you shared it with someone that maybe is no longer a part, maybe still within the organization, but no longer a part of that group, maybe that needed to have that information, is that something where you'd be able to remove those persons or that person? What does that look like?
Yeah, you would probably have to go in and you can remove them from the document. So when you pull up that sharing, it has a list of everyone that it's been shared with, and you can remove them from that. The biggest thing too, what a lot of people do is they may share a folder. And so that person has access to everything. It's rare that, like, in large groups that you're sharing individual documents, you may have a shared drive. or folder. So you just would want to remove that person's access from that folder too, because then they can share anything that's in there.
Yes, my question is, when you try to share your document and you type in one letter wrong or something, will it notify you to let you know that it didn't go through?
No, it won't. You'll have to go through. So it'll show when it's shared with someone, it'll populate that it has been shared with them. But if you don't see their name underneath there, that means it didn't share with them. So it doesn't bounce back. The only time it bounces back is if they're no longer employed at the district. Because you know how then the email bounces back. But for some reason I noticed I've had to go in and I'm like, wait, why didn't they get this? And it was because, you know, a number was left out. So yeah, you just gotta, once you've shared it, you can go back and open up that share again and just double check that it was shared with that person.
Okay, so you won't know until you check it yourself.
Yeah, because it
Okay.
doesn't like bounce back and say unable to share. So that's what I've noticed a lot when students are sharing with their teacher and they type in you know, they're trying to transfer and they forget something. The teacher won't know. I mean, it doesn't notify you, unfortunately.
Okay, thank you.
Any final questions? Thank you, Ms. Cook, and for everyone who's asked questions. And if you have any other questions, please put them in the chat. Also, feel free to reach out to us and we can certainly connect you to Ms. Ray if you have any questions you think about after this time. And then also, this will be uploaded to the CCS Professional Development YouTube page. So please be on the lookout for that as well. We are so glad to have you all here today. Ms. Ray, any final thoughts you want to provide us? We want to say thank you and certainly thank you I've learned a lot myself, just little things that you don't really think about until you need to use them. And so I appreciate that. So before we close out our time together and I put the evaluation link in, I'd love for you to just close us out.
Yeah, just thanks for your time again. And you know, like I said, it's just a learning process. Just keep trying different technology. Don't be afraid of it. Try to learn something new. Set goals for yourself. Maybe you're not going to learn all the Google apps, but you might say, you know what, by the end of this school year, I'm going to have a better understanding of Google Docs. Or, you know, just set small goals for yourself to reach when it comes to different technology platforms. Just, okay, this is what, you know, because trying to learn everything can be a little bit overwhelming. So narrow and set some professional goals and say, okay, when it comes to, you know, this school year or even when you're thinking of over the summer, you know, or next school year, thinking about your professional development and just setting some attainable goals for yourself to say, okay, I'm going to learn how to use Canva, or I'm going to learn how to use this and these different things and just kind of make it less so that you don't feel as overwhelmed.